So hello everyone, welcome to another module, a basic module of entrepreneurship and corporate entrepreneurship. I'm Iraklis Agiovlasitis from the National Documentation Center of Athens. So, what we will be discussing actually in the basic module of entrepreneurship is how and what exactly a business model is, how we can present a business case and an enterprise through schematics, through a business model. So, business model is something that is quite loosely used in the business world without anyone really knowing exactly what this word means. Business managers use this term quite often, but they lack complete understanding of this word. And there are many types of models that they are referring to. A business model is not the revenue model. A revenue model is what incomes to a company comes from. A business model, again, is not the operating model of a business. In order to be able to identify exactly what the business model is, we will have to look at some diagrams. This is a model of architecture. This is quite easier to understand, and we use this model in order to present buildings or other physical structures. This is a network model of a computer, and we can use it in engineering or in electrical engineering to showcase how a network can be built. And this is a quite more complicated process model that can be used to put into paper a more complex process of whatever this might be, a flowchart actually. Diagrams, charts, blueprints, building blocks, they can all be used in order to model something, either big or small. So in this manner, a business model is something that describes the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. This definition comes from Alexander Osterwelder's book, which is called Business Model Generation, a handbook for visionaries, game changers, and challengers. So, this is the kind of schematic model that helps us gain the complete picture of an organization, of a business, from a high-level perspective. It's a framework that helps us understand how the different entities of a business come all together and how they interlink between them. So let's see some types of business models to further try and understand what these business models are. The first and most common business model is the selling business model. Someone may be selling a simple product. So if you, for example, sell soap or software as a bundle, then this is something that you sell, a very easy to understand business model. But you may also sell a service. This is not something that has to do with the product itself, but something that you provide to the actual customer. And maybe you may be selling a subscription, like a magazine subscription. A second business model is the licensing business model. This is more common to inventors. An inventor may have a patent and he may not want to commercialize with it, but he may give it out to a company and the company makes profit and revenue from selling this invention, and some money goes back to the original inventor. A third business model is the advertising business model, which is quite common in the TV, for instance, sector, or in web advertising model. This is just an extension of the traditional media broadcast advertising model. And sometimes there can also exist some hybrid business models. So, for instance, you may go to the movies and you may watch a movie. This is a service that is provided to you, and there may be some advertising before the movie. So this is an advertising business model. And maybe you can also have a bundle with some food or beverage or another snack, and this would be a product business model. So this is a more complicated but can be categorized as a hybrid business model. So its business model has some positive and some negative aspects. The selling business model is easier to define. It's quite easy to scale when products are not involved or when products are standardized. So this is the only case when it is easy to scale. But the key to the growth is sales and distribution channels. So selling business models, the first 3 columns in this table, can and may refer to huge companies. And they can be very profitable business models, and they are the most common. But actually, the web and the web economy have also given access to new subscription business models that are more and more scalable, and they have great potential of growth over time. And then there are the licensing business models, which can be quite profitable, but the licensee is not sure about the profit that he will have. And the risks, complicated, can be higher in these cases. The subscription business models can be appropriate for companies that may be selling information or providing software or other IT examples. And they can involve different types of risks. They can be cheap to start, but expensive in the market later on. So, how can we put all these pieces together? Or how can we represent all these business cases in one framework? Here it is, the business model canvas. This is 9 adjacent building blocks that are fitting together in a puzzle, and they can give you the entire picture of a whole business, how it works and how it relates. These 9 building blocks, from a quick overview, are the customer segments, the value proposition, the channels of distribution, the revenue streams, the customer relationships, key resources, key activities, partner network, and cost structure. And these give you the what your business is providing, how your business is providing these services, and how do money come in or out. And we'll go slowly and see each of the 9 building blocks, what exactly does it mean, and how can you use this framework in order to describe your own enterprise or your own startup idea. So let's start with the what. And the very first thing is to identify your customer. So let's go to the right hand corner and see the customer segments. The customer segments defines the different groups of people or organizations your company or your business serves. These customer segments may exist in different markets. They may refer to, for instance, to a mass market, one large group which may be comprising of only one segment, or maybe to a niche market, or to a slightly different customer groups. So this could be referring to a segmented market, or maybe even a diversified market with multiple unrelated customer segments, or multi-sided markets. So, in these cases, you have to put multiple or all the different types of customers your business is serving in bullet points in this building block. So, once you know who your customers are, and you may be able to describe them with your mind or with your imagination, you have to describe the value proposition that you can provide to each and each. So, you have... Πάω λίγο πίσω, θα κάνουμε ένα μικρό cut εδώ πέρα.
Ηρακλή,
ναι.
Cut, θυμάσαι.
Ναι, ναι.
Το δηλώνεις και ξαναξεκινάμε. Πάμε.
So, once you have defined all your customers, you have to explain which value proposition you may bring to each different type of customer segments. So, the value proposition describes the bundle of products or services that create value for a specific customer segment. The questions that you have to answer are two. What value do you deliver to the customer, and what exactly are you offering to each different customer segment? And this may have to do with qualitative criteria, such as a new product or a better performing product or a better design in your product or a customizable product. Or maybe these criteria, this value that you're bringing to your customers may be quantitative. So, for instance, you may be offering a lower cost of ownership for this product, a cheaper price. You may be doing something that has less risks related to this product, or maybe just a more convenient and more usable product. And now that you know what value, and now that you know what value do you bring to its customer segment, you have to find and identify the channels that your company communicates with and reaches your customers. So, the key questions you have to answer is, through which channels are your customers reached? How can we integrate all these channels together, and what measures define which channels work best for our customers and our products? These channels can help you raise awareness for the product or help customers evaluate your value proposition and maybe allow them to purchase your product and thus deliver your value proposition to the right target group with the proper way. And this comes to the customer relationships and what types of relationships your company wants to establish with each specific customer segment. These customer relationships are always driven by motivations in order to further acquire new customers or retain your current customer base or use your customer base to upsell new products or services. In the next part of the business model canvas, we will discuss the bottom segment. How does the money come into the organization? So let's see. On the bottom right-hand corner, we have the revenue streams, which represent the money that a company generates from each, again, customer segment. The key questions you have to answer in order to be able to identify the revenue streams is, what is the value that customers are really willing to pay for, and what do they currently pay for to your competitors, for instance, and how will this change in the future? Or are there ways to generate further new revenue streams, like buying assets or retaining customers or new subscription models or licensing or advertising, all these different business models that we were discussing earlier? And the types of revenue streams can be reflecting transaction revenues resulting from one-time customer payments or recurring revenues, which may be resulting from ongoing payments that either deliver a value proposition to customers and or provide post-purchase customer support. This may be related, as you probably understand, to the subscription model. How does this take place? Let's try to identify the three building blocks in this corner of the business model canvas. So, the first one are the key resources, which describes the most important assets required to make your specific business model work and succeed. These resources may be physical, they may be financial, they may be intellectual, or even human capital. And the key resources can be owned or leased by the company, or they may even be acquired from your key partners, which will be identified in another building block. And exactly what are the key activities that you will be having to do as a business? This describes the most important things a company must do to make its business model work. It's, for instance, for a PC manufacturer like Dell, the key activities could include very different things from like another company. Like a PC manufacturing company may include supply chain management and production manufacturing. But for a consultancy firm, these key activities may be including a totally different activity like problem solving or creating and generating studies. So these key activities will have to do with production, with problem solving, or networks, matchmaking platforms, and software. And this comes down to identifying your key partnerships, the network of suppliers and partners that are absolutely required to make your business model work. These types of partnerships may be strategic alliances, they may be joint ventures, or buyer and supplier relationships, like where you buy your products from or your first resources. And they may also be related to competition, like strategic partnerships between competitors. What is the motivation between these partnerships? This is the key question that you will have to answer, because they may be useful for optimizing and creative economies of scale, but they may be completely required in order to acquire particular resources or activities. Or they may be required in order to reduce some potential risks and uncertainty for the future or for your competition. And this comes to the money out, which is the cost structure actually of your business model. And this describes all different costs that may be included or required for your operation. And there are cost-driven or value-driven business models. Costs should and may be calculated relatively easy after defining your key resources, your key activities, and all your key partnerships. And you have to know that cost-driven business models will focus on minimizing costs whenever possible, whereas value-driven business models, they are less concerned with cost implication, and instead they focus on value creation, such as premium value propositions and high degree of personalized services. This is related to the value-driven business models. So this is a quick overlook of all the 9 different building blocks required for a business model canvas. And it's time for you to go and reflect on what has been discussed in this presentation and study. The first thing is to revise from the book of Dr. Alexander Osterwalder, the 72 pages which describe all these 9 different building blocks with concrete examples. And maybe you should also see some blogs on the web, Steve Blank's blogs categories that are related to business modeling, or Eric Ries's blog posts on lean startup and customer development, in order to further drill down on these building blocks that are related to customers and to the value proposition. And also, don't miss out on Steve Brown's Innovators Traction blog. So, that's all for now. See you in another session.
Μια χαρά. Πολύ καλά.
Ναι.
Ναι.
Το έχουμε.
Και από την αρχή ο ήχος είναι σχετικά αποδεκτός.
Okay.
Τι άλλο έχουμε?
Άλλη μια παρουσίαση. Πόσο πήγε αυτό περίπου σαν χρόνο?
21 και 30 έχω, βάλε καθαρά 19.
Okay.
18-19. Δεν το κόβω.
Όχι, όχι.
Συνεχίζουμε. Όποτε θέλεις, κόβεις μόνος σου.
Yep.
Θυμάσαι.
Ναι, ναι.
Ωραίος.
Ναι. Αν θες το ξεκινάς πάντως. Ναι, ναι, το ξεκινάω. Hello everyone and welcome to the advanced module of Entrepreneurship and Corporate Entrepreneurship. I'm Iraklis Agiovlasitis from the National Documentation Center in Athens, Greece. So, what we'll be discussing today in the advanced module is funding and funding opportunities for startups. This is a picture that may be quite familiar to you. All startups are looking for funding. They try to find their own activities, and this is a never-ending chase. Maybe some of the startups could be lucky, and they eventually, after a lot of chasing and a lot of effort, they come up with some money. But this does not solve their problems, because at some point you will run out of this money and you will go back to running and chasing again for further money. So this is the never-ending chase of business development for a startup. And in order to be able to know what funding options are there out there, you have to understand some common framework pieces in the puzzling. So, in order to be able to identify your funding resources, you will have to come up with some insights regarding this puzzle, this funding puzzle. What are your options? Bootstrapping. You may start with your own resources. You may get a debt from a financial institution, such as a bank. You may give equity in order to get money from an investor. You may find a grant, or you may win a prize, or you may also use some other types of funding, some newer types of funding, such as crowdfunding. We'll see all these bullet points into further detail in the next slides. This is a very basic diagram, the startup financing cycle. And this has to do with the first period of product or business development. So, when you start your business, you always burn money and you enter this notorious valley of death, where you only invest money and you do not have even a product that you can sell in the market. Once you get your business product or service into the market, you start earning your revenues, and then you may reach at some point the break-even point. This here is the break-even point. Once you reach the break-even point, you may be the lucky one that comes into profitability, and then you will require further funding in order to expand your business. So, what differentiates your financing cycle is the maturity of your product or your business development. At the very first stage, where you only invest, you may find money from early prizes, from competitions, or from grants for early businesses or for startups. Or you may start start looking for money in the triple F people, friends, family, and fools. You may also look for some angel investors that may be able to provide you with some pre-seed or seed capital. But once you reach profitability, then your financing requirements in order to scale your business may be significantly higher, and this is when you turn to venture capitals, for instance, or you're looking for large enterprises to make an acquisition or a merger. And at the very last stage, you may be among the lucky ones that may make an initial public offering and go out to the stock market, to the public market. And what happens with your business that was your own child, your own company that you built at some point and you had all the equity yourself, is that it is getting diluted. More and more people are getting into the company, they get equity, they get shares, you may get more shareholders, and your part of the equity sharing is going lower and lower over time. But what is important is that your business is expanding and the value of your segment is higher than was before, than was earlier. But this is a normal stage of business development, and you should not be afraid of it. What happens when you want to have both the pie full and the dog fed? You may reach for some funding, like funding schemes from the European Commission or grants. So let's start with trying to identify what funding instruments are there for startups. And you should know and you should familiarize yourself with Startup Europe, which is a very interesting priority of the European Union that allows or gathers resources for funding for startups. Who can participate? All legal entities may participate in EU project funding. So startups could be eligible, but you have to identify which funding instrument is specifically targeting startups and which is not, because not all instruments are referring to the right target group. So what we will be discussing today is the SME instrument, FIWARE, FedOpen, COSME, and some further resources for access to risk finance or crowdfunding. And once more, you have to be sure and know that there's no one-size-fits-all with regard to funding schemes and funding instruments. SME instrument. SME instrument is the most competitive currently funding instrument under Horizon 2020, which may be offering you from 50,000 euros up to 2.5 or 5 million euros as a single small or medium-sized enterprise in the European Union. This is very competitive, and this refers to disruptive innovation and disruptive innovative technologies or business models that may be having a very high competitive and commercial value in the worldwide market, not only in a local market. The SME instrument is for legal entities that have already started their, or they do exist for many years in the market. So it is not a vehicle for creating startups, but maybe some startup may have a very innovative and commercial business product that could be of eligibility for the SME instrument. You will find further details for all 6 funding instruments in these PowerPoints that are available to you on the Moodle platform. The second funding instrument is FIWARE, which is targeting open APIs for open minds. Actually, FIWARE is a startup financing scheme or a business financing scheme for future internet technologies, and this is very targeting and very relative to what you are discussing in the other courses of Colibri. FIWARE may be able to give you funding from 5,000 euros up to 200,000 euros through a network of 16 accelerators all over Europe. You just have to identify some APIs that you are willing to use in order to provide your services through a commercial business model. Or you have to create your own APIs based on maybe some generic enablers that FIWARE is offering you in order to create your product or service. FedOpen. FedOpen is referring to future and emerging technologies and is more research-oriented scheme. This has to do with high-risk research projects that need collaboration across Europe. So the minimum requirement is to have 3 partners from 3 different countries. And the budget of this project is significantly higher, from 2 to 4 million euros. But again, the focus here is on breakthrough technologies that have a strong academic part. And then there are exchange programs like the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs program, which offers you the possibility to go and learn in a different country next to a successful enterprise. You will find more details in your local Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs office, and you can find the opportunities where you can exchange these experiences with other entrepreneurs all around Europe. And then there are resources for access to risk finance. So this means debt or equity models. And you have to know the access to finance.eu website where you can search for and you have to know the access for finance.eu website where you will be able to identify all these resources in your local market, in your national market. And Enterprise Europe Network is the key resource that can give you the first cut. And Enterprise Europe Network is the place you can start your search. There's a local office of Enterprise Europe Network in each country, and you can start by knocking on their door and ask for what business support services they can provide. They can signpost you to the most appropriate person who will give you the information you need for each of these funding instruments. Please do not be afraid of contacting your Enterprise Europe Network local partner. So, you will be able to find more details on all these 6 funding instruments on the PowerPoint on the Moodle platform. Thanks for watching.
Μια χαρά.
Πόσο ήταν αυτό?
Πολύ καλά.
Εντάξει.
Ναι. Θες να τα ακούσουμε και λίγο μαζί, εδώ, να δεις τι έχεις κάνει, τι έχουμε κάνει.
Ό,τι θες.